The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're pleased to have Steve Landis with us from the House of Delegates, Chairman of the House Education Committee. Good to see you, sir.
Woody, it's good to be back.
How are things going in your district, your neck of the woods?
Well, actually, things are going pretty well in the Shenandoah Valley and the Piedmont areas that I represent. Jobs are increasing in Rockingham and Augusta, which is a good thing, and things are moving along in Charlottesville and Albemarle.
So the new Virginia economy is taking hold there?
It has. I mean, I think things are slower than we would like to see them, but most business people I talk to say that they see the light at the end of the tunnel, and the light is not coming towards us as a train sometimes approaches, but it looks like things are improving.
I take it there's some optimism given the fact there's a new administration in Washington, especially in terms of sequestration.
There is. We do believe from Virginia's standpoint, and which it impacts all of Virginia, with the new president and the Congress talking about expanding the Navy, building ships. Obviously that helps the Hampton Roads, Newport News area. And then defense spending in general looks like it's going to be on the increase, so that will help Virginia. We've got to make sure, though, we don't become overly dependent on that defense spending in the future, because as the governor's talked about, and we agree, we've got to diversify the Virginia economy. We can't become dependent just on federal funding.
Now, Go Virginia is still in its infancy, but talk to us about the potential impact of that in terms of regionalization and spurring new investment, new businesses.
There's a lot going on with that. In fact, in the Charlottesville-Albemarle area and also in the Valley, the regional council is being formed, and business leaders, local government leaders are starting to meet about what their vision is going to be for their region of the state and how they can partner with other regions. So that's really up and running. The state board that I serve on has approved its bylaws and basically kind of the guidelines for these regional councils. That's in the works. We'll be meeting soon after the session. We'll start looking at what plans come forward from the regional councils for how they can spark their economies locally, what plans they have, what they're going to do to kind of think outside the box to really bring the economy forward. And look forward to all those proposals. I know the Charlottesville-Albemarle area and the region, and that regional council is up and running, and in the Valley that is the case as well. So I hope when I get back from Richmond to get a chance to meet with those folks and see what their plans are.
Now, the University of Virginia is a significant economic driver. There are other universities in the Commonwealth, but generally speaking, who are the big private employers in your district?
Well, in Charlottesville and Albemarle, the university is the largest single employer, and in most college towns, if you look at various regions in the state, universities play an important role in the economy. But healthcare in the district that I represent, both in Charlottesville and Albemarle and in the Valley, is a big employer. I know Augusta Health, we partners with UVA and the medical center on many things, is a big employer. We have other great businesses as well. We've got a lot of distribution businesses. In Charlottesville and Albemarle, the biotech industry is emerging and becoming an important part of the economy locally. And I know I've worked with folks to try to promote that in the Charlottesville-Albemarle region. And so it's very diverse.
What about tourism, forestry, agriculture, for example?
Agriculture plays an important role throughout the district I represent. Agriculture, as in wines, craft beer, is a real advantageous business for the region. It also promotes tourism. On both sides of the mountain, it's an important growing business. Obviously in Charlottesville and Albemarle, it's been there since the 70s and growing. Great wines, actually great craft beers. So that's one part in agriculture that's taking off. In addition to the producers, of the products, we've got farmers who are growing the grapes and growing hops now. And so that's great. And that agriculture base stabilizes the economy in that part of the state and provides a real economic boon. We've got even bronze turkeys, Kelly turkeys in western Albemarle, and that's a unique agriculture product. But they're doing a great job, and so we've got even niches like that that are really in the agriculture field that are really taking off.
Well, let's talk about some of the issues your committee has addressed so far this session. The concept of virtual schools is really starting to blossom, is it not?
It is. Delegate Dickey Bell has had legislation the last couple of years creating a virtual school system, if you will, statewide. There would be a separate board at the state level, would allow students from all over the state, and it could be military families, young people that move a lot in and out of Virginia because of their parents posting in the military. It could be children that have health-related concerns and they might not get a chance to be in schools for whatever reason. And it would also just give kids a chance if they want to maybe do more and take accelerated classes that maybe they can't get in their high school or their middle school. It provides them an opportunity as well. I think really in the next 10 years, every school system will be utilizing virtual education. They'll be able to share classes across school districts. They'll be able to have options like what Delegate Bell has envisioned. And that's happening in higher ed as well. It's a new age when it comes to educational opportunities for our young people. And with the technology we've got now, students can sit in their home, or they could sit anywhere basically with a tablet or a computer or a smartphone and take care of going to a class.
That's a great example because a lot of parents want to homeschool their children, and this would be a great supplement for them.
It would. It would provide homeschool parents an opportunity as well, especially with some of the classes that maybe mom or dad's just not comfortable with teaching. And the cases in our public schools as well is that there may be for one instance that's been given to us, if a school system has a Chinese language teacher, someone that actually is fluent and that can understand and really teach Chinese, well, you're not going to find somebody that can do that in every school system. So that's the kind of opportunity virtual education allows for students across the state.
What about allowing parents to have educational savings accounts? I think Delegate LaRock has a bill dealing with that and on a limited basis at least.
It does. It would provide those children that are having either special needs or their parents don't think that their educational needs are being met in a certain area. What they can do is they can, just like a health savings account, they would have an account. They could utilize those funds and then get that educational opportunity. It could be virtual education, it could be another educational opportunity, but it just gives parents more options. And I think when I talk to most parents, we have great public school systems, we have great private school systems in Virginia, but parents want options, whether it's virtual schools or educational savings accounts or charter schools. They want some opportunities to have those tools in the toolbox, if you will. And that doesn't again, take anything away from our public schools that do a great job.
Why are we so behind in charter schools? I think we have maybe 6 to 8. National average per state is about 120.
It is. And even the District of Columbia has got 30-some, and their school systems in some cases really struggle. I think it's because the way the Constitution is structured. But Senator Openchain and I have taken a different approach this year with those constitutional concerns in doing regional charter schools where school systems that actually have failed, have schools that have failed for the last 3 years in their accreditation. There could be a regional charter school of 2 or 3 school divisions that could partner together, work with the Board of Education that have local representatives on a charter school board, set up a charter that would provide an opportunity for parents in those areas that are really having struggling schools, and would provide that as an option. It doesn't say that has to occur, but if they're looking for that opportunity, a charter could be started in those school systems. There are about 9, I think, divisions that have schools that would qualify.
School discipline has been part of the dialogue this session. Talk to us about the pros and cons of that.
Well, that's always a difficult subject. We want to empower our school boards to control student discipline, whether it's at the administrative level for principals and vice principals, but also in the classroom. But on the other end of that issue, we've had cases where some school systems have used it as a way to just get rid of disruptive kids that maybe have acted out or maybe had one or two incidences, but have then suspended them and taken them out of the system. We have to educate every child. So Delegate Bell, Dickey Bell, and Senator Stanley have had some legislation that try to deal with that. Now, I didn't support it because I do think in the end result, we have to trust our public schools, administrators, and the school boards to set those policies. But I do understand the concern, and we need to get at those bad actors that are just using it as a way to get students out of the classroom and not really try to provide them the educational opportunity they need.
Any chance the governor will sign the Tim Tebow bill this session?
I don't think so. The governor's been pretty consistent on that. But again, Delegate Rob Bell should be credited for bringing that forward. Many years ago, I put on an amendment to at least let us try it for 5 years, see if it works, and allow those homeschoolers to participate in those sports, I think would do no harm.
Now, we talked a little bit about higher education. Of course, the costs are continuing to rise. I believe the Majority Leader, Kirk Cox, has a bill dealing with that.
He does. Delegate Cox has been really a leader on trying to bring the cost of tuition and just the cost of education, higher education in general down. His legislation is, again, a work forward to try to deal with that and bring some cost containment, if you will. Many parents that we talk to and students are really having a tough time providing the funds they need to be able to go to take access and to go to college or university, and we're trying to address those issues. We've heard from parents and students, and we're trying to come up with ways to deal with that.
Dual enrollment, high school students and with our community colleges working towards certificates, for example. I'm glad to see that because that stigma seemed to have disappeared. When I was in school, if you were going to a technical school, for some reason you were looked down upon.
And that's interesting, Woody, because when I was growing up, the young men that I went to high school with, they actually learned a trade in career and technical school. They're plumbers, some of them, and carpenters. Some of them have gone into contracting. They make more money than I do because those are hard skills to come by, and it's a special skill that all of us need. We still have to build things. We still have to create things. But what we are doing with the credentialing program through our dual enrollment program, both at K through 12 and the community college, is trying to find a way to encourage, incentivize young people and people to go back to school, get their credential, so they can go out in the work world. And they'll have that skill set that businesses are looking for. In addition to that, we're also looking at the high school redesign so that when you are in your last 2 years of high school, you would have completed your SOL requirements. You might have one or two requirements from a graduation standpoint, whether it's English or social studies class. But other than that, you'd be able to, if you're on the career and technical path, you'd be able to take advantage of that credentialing program while you're still in high school. With that dual enrollment that you might have with a community college. Or you could go in and do an apprenticeship program. Say if you wanted to be a welder, you could go out and actually learn how to do that, go out and start doing that the last 2 years of high school, probably have a job ready for you once you graduate. Then for kids that are going to college, what we do is allow for additional time for advanced placement classes so that you may be able to have your first year of college under your belt before you actually get to college. That would assist with affordability, and then if you want to do a dual major, double minor, a minor and a double major, whatever it may be, or if you want to go into pre-law or medicine, it just helps you fast track some of those early on requirements. So we're looking at that. We're working with the Board of Education, and I'm real excited about that opportunity for our young people.
Now, I take it the standards of learning K through 8 are being implemented. Are they being migrated to our high schools?
They are. We are trying to do what we can to still provide accountability in our system. and at the same time make it more flexible so that we're not just doing testing every year. You know, the federal government helped us with the Every Student Succeeds Act that replaced No Child Left Behind. It provides much more flexibility. Secretary DeVos has said she's going to implement that fully and abide by what the Congress and President Obama agreed to, which is great news for Virginia. So we're trying to see how that fits and see how our standards can be kept in place, but at the same time we really want to roll back those last 2 years of college, some of the standardized testing and accreditation standards we have to have right now.
Back to dual enrollment and certifications, one of the more positive things that came out of the governor's remarks a few weeks ago related to high school students who can obtain certification in cybersecurity. Apparently there are a lot of jobs and they start at a pretty high salary as well.
They do, and the governor should be commended for really promoting that, because that's something we need to really look at. Not only just cybersecurity, which is an important issue because all of us potentially can be hacked either at home or in businesses or in government related to security, especially with all the activities we have over the internet from a business and government standpoint. So it's an important aspect of just protecting our own identities as well as confidential information. Just think of the healthcare issues related to protecting people's healthcare records and the like, our credit records and all those things. So it is an important niche that we can really try to find training programs that provide opportunities for young people or folks that want to go back and get some additional training, and they may be out of a job that can get that expertise and then go out in the workforce. We'd like to be a leader in the United States and hopefully the world. We've got the assets if you look at the technology companies, what's going on in Northern Virginia and other parts of the state. We've got training programs at our universities, and also many of our community colleges are looking at those programs. Some high schools are looking at how they can do computer coding, and we're moving in that direction so that those young people are kind of coming up with the basics of what all that is about and how that applies to cybersecurity. So I think we've got the tools in place to be a leader in that.
Let's move to another important committee that you are the vice chair of, and that's appropriations. You're dealing with the budget now. You happen to be a budget conferee, and explain to our viewers what that means.
Well, budget conferees are appointed by the Speaker in the House and then the chairman or the co-chairman of the Senate Finance Committee on the Senate side, and we are the 12 people that put the two versions, the House version and the Senate version of the budget together, and we basically try to work on the differences, come to a conclusion, a resolution, and in many cases compromise between the two bodies to put out the final version that the House and Senate have to vote on, and then that it goes to the governor.
So both the House and the Senate version have been out for at least a week now, I take it, and there are some differences. Talk to us about what those major differences are.
The major differences are more nuanced. In other words, we both have, if you look at the big picture, the big dollar amounts, we're not that far apart from how we spend the dollars in the certain areas of the budget. The biggest thing we have to look is at compensation. We have a little bit of a different take on how we approach compensation, especially with education and education budget. We basically wanted to take up to 40% additional funding. We've actually got, I think, $9 to $12 million more than the governor had for public education, but we wanted to go through the lottery formula, which allows school systems very much flexibility. What they could do is they could use it for a pay raise or to help cover their VRS additional costs or other
Virginia
operational.
Retirement System.
Virginia Retirement System.
Okay.
The Senate did a 2% pay raise, which basically is the state share of a 2% pay raise, which is 1%. And we just felt like the school systems, all but 12, have already instituted pay raises, so we thought doing it through the lottery would give them ultimate flexibility in letting the local school boards and local administrations be able to fund that. But that's the difference we'll have to work out.
Go ahead.
We also have some differences in how we did some of our healthcare related spending. Again, we're pretty much on target related to behavioral health and mental health. A couple little differences there. It was only $1 million or $2 million here or there that we'll have to resolve. But in most areas of the budget, we're pretty close.
I think you're not only close, but in agreement that law enforcement is entitled to a significant increase. Talk to us about the whys and wherefores of that.
Well, for public safety officials, especially state police and local law enforcement, we're having a tough time actually recruiting people to stay, especially in our state police, people to stay and actually not move into local law enforcement because of the pay. So we're bringing up the base pay for state troopers. We're dealing with what we call the compression issue. Troopers that have been on the job for a number of years, they haven't seen a pay raise or an increase. We're trying to up them as well so that they are not compressed, in other words, getting the same amount as an entry-level trooper. So we're dealing with that. We're trying to deal with local state responsible employees and the constitutional officers, deputies as well. So we're looking at that. That's a 2%. The troopers are getting a 3% along with state employees, which they have not gotten a pay raise in a number of years. We're losing a lot of our key individuals that are retiring, so we have to bring new people on board, obviously, to operate government and to continue that continuum of service to the people. So we're looking at that. The higher education community would also benefit from the pay raise that we're looking at. But the state troopers really are the ones that, and the public safety officials are the ones we're concerned about the most. Now, the one difference is the people that protect us here in Richmond, the Capitol Police, we had that included as part of that package in the House budget, but the Senate didn't, so we're going to have to resolve that.
Give us an order of magnitude in terms of the starting pay salary, for example, of a state police officer.
State police officers are in the range of about 32, 35,000.
32, 35.
And we're going to take that up to the mid to upper 40s at this point, which is comparable to what many folks in local law enforcement are getting, especially in our urban areas. In fact, people will tell you that we're losing even Capitol Police or state police to VCU police, to the VCU Police Department, because they're able to pay more. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to resolve and try to keep folks that we train in the state police and other local law enforcement agencies in those local law enforcement agencies, rather than have them, leave for another job that just pays more.
Teacher raises, you mentioned that. I understand also K through 12 is being held harmless.
It is. There are no cuts to K through 12, and both the House and Senate budget were able to accomplish that. Again, we have a little bit different approach on compensation for local school systems, and we'll resolve that. But suffice it to say, there's more money than even the governor had in the budget for K through 12, and we're trying to bring those levels of funding back up that obviously were reduced after the Great Recession.
Now, the governor had suggested a one-time bonus. What are the implications? What's the difference, other than the fact that it's one time, between that bonus and a pay raise?
Well, a pay raise, you keep receiving the benefit of obviously those funds. A one-time bonus, you get it one time, and then the next year those funds aren't there. So that's the big difference. The other difference is that the governor, unfortunately, the way he included it in the budget, the local school systems would have to cover part of that as well, but it's still one time. And that's, again, why we went with the methodology of trying to provide as much flexibility to the school systems to use it how they see fit. And I think our Senate counterparts will probably come around to a certain extent, partly to that, because it just provides more flexibility. Chairman Jones and other members of our committee actually had a conference call with superintendents before we went with that methodology, because we wanted to get their input and really see what they thought about the issue, and I think they liked it.
What about the rural schools, especially in Southside and Southwest Virginia, that have been experiencing significant declining enrollment, but still have to support a plant there? They
do, and I know you've talked to my colleagues in Southside and Southwest. They're really struggling, and their school systems are trying to operate systems and buildings that have fewer students and a number of fewer students. So the House and Senate have a similar approach, but we took what we call the 10-10-10 plan, which actually was a plan that Delegate Nick Rush and others worked on with Chairman Jones and members of our committee to basically provide that additional supplement for those students or those school systems that have students that is on enrollment decline.
What about the Virginia retirement system. How secure is it? I know we've migrated from a defined benefit plan to a hybrid now. How's that going?
It's going well. I think new employees like the flexibility. Many young people that are coming into state service, obviously, they want something that's portable, like most young people. They're used to 401ks and the like in the private sector, so we think that that's going pretty well. We're fully funding the VRS rate and making sure we get back to the level to fully fund our retirement system for our current retirees and our future retirees. Delegate Jones actually has a bill that provides some additional flexibility for employees related to our Virginia retirement system, so that we're trying to do new and different things to keep up, make sure the system's solvent, but also keep up with what benefits and what benefit packages are looking like nationally.
Now, what about the rainy day fund? Has the General Assembly had to use any of those monies?
We did, from the standpoint of what the governor proposed and what we're going to do related to balancing the budget. But as the revenues increase, and actually January was a pretty good month, we had about a 7.4% increase in revenue. We had one more deposit day, as we call it, so that's partly to answer for that. But once we have those additional funds, and if we do by the end of the fiscal year, which will end June 30th, that'll automatically go into the rainy day fund, and then there's some other funds that automatically get additional funding, and we have to build it back up. Even though we've used it. Both the House and Senate budget have what we call a revenue reserve. We're doing a tax amnesty program that we've done a couple of times in the past. And revenues that come in for that will go to that revenue reserve as well. So we'll be well prepared in case something were to happen again.
About a minute and a half left, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your legislation dealing with residency requirements for institutions of higher learning who have members on boards of trustees. I know there was an interesting debate on the House floor about that.
Yeah, one of the things that actually was recommended to me by some former members of boards of visitors around the state is that we somehow start bringing a realization to boards that there is not only a responsibility to the institution that you are serving on the board, but also to the Commonwealth of Virginia and the citizens of Virginia. So what I came up with was just that board members, rectors and vice rectors, or for the State Board for Community Colleges and the president of VMI's board, which is a little bit different, be Virginia residents. And it seemed like a simple a measure to try to build in that accountability. It's not saying the governor can't appoint people from outside the state, but I think most of us believe that there needs to be that allegiance to the Commonwealth of Virginia and her citizens. And if the officers of the board are Virginia residents, there's more of that connection.
Very briefly, the opioid epidemic.
That's a real problem. We've got a series of legislation both in the House and Senate. Delegate Pillion's been working on that. And I think we're going to move forward and really try to address that issue.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us, Delegate Steve Landis. Good to see you again.
Woody, thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I am Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.